the concrete substantive things are available. The hard part is what we call ACE. I forgot the term off my head, but it has to do with childhood experiences, right? The trauma, right? And so if you don't deal with the trauma, adverse child experiences, if you don't deal with the trauma, right, then you're gonna have a person who is struggling mentally all the time, and struggling mentally all the time makes it very hard for you to deal with the flow of life. That's already difficult for everybody else in and of itself. If you got all of this other stuff going on, I often say like this: people have been traumatized at a young age. They perform a crime of some sort and go to jail. Well, now they are traumatized again. Right. And so they're expected to get out and just turn the switch off and be normal again. Right. That's not a real expectation, right? You've got all of this trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma, and you're not dealing with it. I'm talking about society is not understanding the therapy and the counseling and all the things that go with, assisting in that area, and you're expecting the individual will be normal. I do applaud a lot of the mental health services really working on decreasing the stigma, that's the point, right. Allowing people to feel comfortable getting therapy, allowing people to be comfortable talking, about issues that have impacted their lives, Now,
let's say that you've got several other things that you're doing, and what I want to do is I want to take a little walk, and I want to start connecting the things that you're doing, such as NAAC, such as being in the ministry, etc. So I want to start connecting them.
Okay.
So, but I'm going to start with that person. It's day one. I'm out of. I'm out of the incarceration.
Okay.
Now, I may or may not have a family or support system in place. So if you had to go like step one, do this, step two, do this, step three, like that, what are like maybe 3 or 4 things that they should do when they get out?
Well, there's a lot of things that happen, and I shouldn't say a lot because they're minimal, but spirituality is a necessary component because that's where we get our strength. That's where we get our vision. That's where we get our revelation. Divine intervention is going to be necessary. You are going to run into brick walls that only God can kick down. And so the relationship with God is necessary. So having a spirituality connection, being involved at a church, some kind of church at some level. I'm a Christian man. I believe in the Trinity. I believe in Jesus Christ. But hey, if you have another tradition that works for you, who am I, right? I just preach the gospel. All who have ears, let them hear.
So I'm hearing then, number one is look to make a spiritual connection.
Right.
Okay. Then
I think that's first.
First. Then what would you say?
Right.
Like here's, a potential path to success. What else would you say?
The spiritual component gives you the vision. Right? Because you got to have vision. Because if I don't know where I'm going, I go anywhere. Right? When I leave here, I'm going to the parkway. I know when I pull out, I got to make a right and I got to make a left. Right? I know where I'm going, so I know which way to turn. Because I know I'm going right when I pull out of here, if somebody wants to get in the car and go left, I say no. Because I know where I'm going. Right? And so the spirituality gives me vision. Right? Now, scripture says, write the vision and make it plain. So the first thing you have to do is plan. And this is where intellectual discipline comes in, right? Planning. Now, if I'm working with individuals who may not be strong in reading and writing, right? How do they develop a plan of action? How do they actually write it down so it's coherent, so they can hear, so they can see it, so they can look at it every day, so they can stay focused and inspired, right? And so we have to get them from the vision, first of all, to accept the fact that God has a purpose for you. Right? God has a purpose for everybody. He told Jeremiah, I knew you when you were in your mother's womb. Right? He also told Jeremiah that I have plans for you, not to harm you, right? But to see you prosper. And so that's everyone. Right? And so the first thing we have to move them to is understanding that God has a purpose for your life. Right. Once I can connect you to some form of vision, even on a smaller level, you may not get the whole picture right away. I didn't. I got it incrementally, right? So you get the vision, but then you got to start working on the plan, right? Okay. But then there's another component. You got to work on the focus, right? Because if I work on the plan could be disrupted by people who come into your life and distract you, right? And so if I'm not clear that I'm going to the Parkway, then somebody could talk me into making a left, right? So I have to have a plan, but I have to hold onto my seat because it would be liable on the character of the devil if he did not do everything he could to disrupt, right, the purpose in your life. Now, here's the issue. Everybody says they believe in God, but a lot of people say they don't necessarily believe in the devil. But just like there's a head and a tail, just like there's a right and a left, just like there's an up and a down, just like there's a criss and a cross. You know, you heard the song.
Sure.
Crisscross and make you jump, right? Right? Gotta go back right? A minute, so for everything, there's an opposite. So if we know that there is a God trying to move us forward, you have to believe that there's a devil trying to pull you backwards. So just like you recognize God, you have to recognize that there's a Satan, a devil, a Lucifer, an evil, whatever you want to call it, that there's evil tugging at you. And so focus has to be primary, because with the vision and the plan, if there's no focus, you easily get distracted, and there's nothing worse than starting over.
Right. Now, what I want to do, like in a couple minutes, because we've got a couple more minutes left, I want to try to tie in what you're doing with the NAACP, the fact that you also have a master's and you teach public administration, and also too, you're working on another master's in divinity. Now, and also you're running for an office in the NAACP as president. Elizabeth. President. In my mind, you've got a connection between all these three.
Yes.
Can you sum that up for us?
Yes. Well, first of all, one of the greatest pleasures that I have is understanding time management, right? I work in Elizabeth for the city. I teach at Kane, which is on the peripheral of Elizabeth. I pastor in Elizabeth. So I get to spend a lot of time working as opposed to a lot of time moving around. The focus, really, I think, of the NAACP is like its mission statement, for example, is to secure the social, educational, political, and economic equality of rights in order to eliminate race-based discrimination, right, and ensure the health and wellness of all persons. It has what they call game changers. There's 6 of them. Economic sustainability, education, health, criminal justice and public safety, voting rights and political representation, and youth and young adult engagement. All of these components, right, can be synergized, if you will, at every level when you have spirituality, when you have support services, when you have a plan, like I say. And so I think that the NAACP, especially in Elizabeth, could be much more effective. I'm not here to tear anybody down.
I got that.
Right? I'm just here to say that it hasn't been as effective as it could be. Everybody knows that. That's no secret. Saying it is not tearing anybody down. The question really is, how do we get it back to where it should be? And I just believe that I can do that.
So if you were to say, hey, listen, Dan, very precisely, clearly, and right to the point, maybe what are 2 things that you would recommend in that regard? Whatever you can share.
Well, I recommend us, African American community, and the NAACP serves the whole community, but it has a responsibility to the African American community. I would suggest that we stop fighting each other. Number one, right? People are sitting on the peripheral, and one of the reasons they're taking things away from us, the affirmative action, right? That has been diminished. Voting Rights Act, that has been diminished, because they're sitting on the peripheral and saying, we can take on the African American community because they're so divided that they can't work together to defend themselves, right? So that's one. We need to be more unified, right? The second thing I would say is We need to focus our young people on being more than just celebrities. We need some lawyers. We need some politicians. We need some governors. We need some CEOs. We need people, right? I got no problem with anybody wanting to be a football player.
Right.
But like I said to a kid one day, he was telling me how he wanted to be a football star. I said, "Do you play football in high school?" He said, "No." I was like, okay, maybe we need to work on something else, because football is not going to happen.
All right. Now we're right down to the wire here. If we can, like, get any final thoughts or any points that you make sure that you want to emphasize, I would like to hear that from you.
We need to recognize, I think, that we have to really be okay with telling the truth to each other. This issue with the Trump presidency, it is impossible for me to really understand. I am extremely frustrated how this particular individual could say stuff that we know isn't true. And we still try to somehow say, well, maybe it's possible. I mean, listen, I just don't get it, right? Let's start by being honest with each other. Let's also start by not being so sensitive and politically correct, right? Let me talk to you straight up. Right, be honest with you. Sometimes even my director gets on me because she says, "Man, you're just too direct sometimes," and I'm like, I'm working on that. I really am, you know. But at the same time, it's not like I'm being insulting or disrespectful. I mean, if you say you're going to be there at 7 and you show up at 7:45, and I got a problem with that, why is that a problem?
Right.
Right. So we need to be able to take constructive criticism, but we also need to know that that constructive criticism is coming out of love and coming out of a willingness for all of us to do better. I don't know, does that answer?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
If people want to contact you, catch up with you, support you, how do they do it?
Oh, well, first of all, we definitely could use some support at True Word Community Christian Center. I'm a pastor there. We have a non-traditional service. We're at 6 p.m. We recognize a lot of people don't want to get up early in the morning anymore. And for those who go in the morning, we want to have some dessert for them as they start their week. We're located at 1161 East Jersey Street. We're there every Sunday night at 6 p.m. So you can contact me at twordccc@gmail.com. That's for the church. If you have issues of reentry, and we all do, whether we've been incarcerated or we've had family members to be incarcerated. If you're from Elizabeth, you can contact me at Grayson, Grayson, at elizabethnj.org. Our city is here to serve the reentry community. We think that is an important population, and we want to make sure that you get back on your feet. Number 908-820-4052. Feel free to call me at any time. We have staff that is interested in your life. So reach out, call us.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, just want to thank you for watching our special guest, Reverend Grayson. We probably have 100 things that we could go into deeper, but we at least, I think, gave some direction. You're watching The Village Drum. My name is Dan Shiver. Thank you very much for your time.